creating a news agenda that reflects an unbiased view of Asian current affairs without relying on external news sources. Asia Vision, Asian news through Asian eyes. For over 30 years, we have been getting stronger and faster. This year alone, we have added 4 new members, increasing our total to 30 members, contributing and exchanging news material every day. But our influence is just not limited to the region. We have been expanding our network across the globe. In the Middle East and Northern Africa, we have Sister Union, Arab States Broadcasting Union, sharing news with us daily. In Europe, we exchange news with over 60 different European broadcasters, and in America, CNN receives news materials from AVN and broadcasts them all over the world. Asian news is changing faster and having more of an impact on global affairs than ever before. Through improvements in technology, journalists are able to submit and access more news stories and receive updates faster through our newly integrated internet-based platform. The new internet platform has made it easier to contribute and access current news events, and the rise of membership participation has led to a dramatic increase of items being exchanged over the last year. With the exchange of news comes the exchange of ideas. Members can also benefit from avian journalist workshops and attachment schemes in our bid to create partnerships, spread knowledge, and elevate standards. So, contribute your views in global affairs and join us as we document history in the making. Asia Vision, Asian news through Asian eyes.
Hello and welcome to Avian News with me, Fatma Sara. A new exhibition aims to show how the art world has responded to the global changes since the terror attacks in the United States on September 11, 2001. Age of Terror Art since 9/11 at London's Imperial War Museum brings together 40 artists from across the world whose works reflect on conflict in society since that day. Henry Richwell reports.
Images so familiar, yet still with the power to transfix, to horrify, and the exhibition curators hope to force reflection on all that has happened in the 16 years since 9/11. The exhibition opens with 912 front page by German artist Hans-Peter Feldmann, 151 newspaper front pages published the day after the terror attacks.
In the internet age, we're bombarded with images, and that feeds into how artists respond as well. And the fact that we're so readily informed about global events, and that the access to that information is so immediate, feeds into how artists research and how artists respond.
Several of the works are provocative. Fellow German Fabian Knecht wore a suit covered in dust that had been worn by a survivor of a suicide bomb attack in Iraq, and filmed himself walking through the streets of New York, an echo of the survivors of 9/11. British brothers Jake and Dinos Chapman aimed to address the continuation of violent conflict, using mounds of plastic Nazi figurines to evoke the World Trade Center Twin Towers. Indian artist Jitish Kalat offers a humorous take on the ubiquitous increased security checks since 9/11. Ai Weiwei, the Chinese artist who has faced constant persecution from Beijing, has a modern twist on the ancient marble sculpture with a
take a moment to
artist, and has watched from a constructed a perfect model of his of destroying it with a sledgehammer.
Until now, I have this constant fear that something will happen. Because of this constant fear that I have in my head, I just wanted to break it. How to get rid of the fear by with breaking the model, let's say.
Tragically for Sarkissian, life is imitating art.
After I did this video, I mean, the house was hit 4 times, and one of the times my parents were sitting and they're watching TV, and my father, but all the windows were completely smashed, and my father, he was injured.
The curators hope the exhibition offers a modern update on the long relationship between conflict and art. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
Asia Vision, Asian news through Asian eyes.
A new report from Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory predicts a link between sea ice melting in the Arctic and dry conditions in California over the next several decades. The finding comes at a time when several wildfires are raging across Southern California. VOA's Elizabeth Lee reports on the work of scientists as they look at the global implications of the melting of glaciers and sea ice and other impacts a changing climate could have around the world.
From devastating wildfires in California to the frozen Arctic, scientists say there may be a link.
Ice is disappearing from the Arctic Ocean, it's disappearing from Greenland, and this is reshaping climate patterns all across the planet.
There's large-scale warming of the Arctic and the increasing loss of sea ice. A new simulation that only looks at sea ice in the next 2 decades shows a pressure ridge pushing the winter air masses north into Alaska and Canada, which impacts California, says atmospheric scientist Ivana Sijanovic in a Skype interview.
And we saw quite substantial drying of California. So due to sea ice alone, we saw 10 to 15% decrease in precipitation over a 20-year period.
You can see the red colors here show where Greenland has lost mass.
Looking at ice, and more specifically glaciers, has been Josh Willis's job lately. On a recent mission to Greenland to see how much oceans are eating away at the ice, what he found has global implications.
Warm water is widespread across the Greenland shelf, and it is very much a major threat to the glaciers. The thing we really don't know is how fast is Greenland's ice going to disappear. If it takes 1,000 years or 2,000 years, then we can probably adapt. But if it happens in a few hundred, we should already be evacuating cities around the world.
What Willis and other scientists can't predict is the climate in regions of the world such as the American Southwest.
We will probably see drier conditions in the long run in the second half of the 20th century in the Southwest. And that means we're going to struggle with water needs and also fire and all the issues that carries with it.
Dry conditions plus a growing population equals more wildfires and costly devastation.
We are in Southern California, and a lot of the fires we find that happen right where people intersect with the wildland happen because of people.
Fire expert Natasha Stavros expects environmental changes as the weather evolves.
As we experience climate changes and things become hotter and drier, fire acts as kind of like an eraser, right? It erases the landscape and it actually allows new ecosystems to establish because they don't have to compete with what was there.
The American Southwest is not the only place where change is predicted.
As the atmosphere heats up, it becomes a better pipe for carrying water, for picking it up in one place and dumping it in another. This means that dry places are likely to get drier and wet places are likely to get wetter. It also means that bigger, more torrential downpours become more likely.
Willis predicts in the future the world will have more severe floods and droughts, but where they will be happening may change over time. Elizabeth Lee, VOA News, Los Angeles.
The environmental group EcoWatch estimates that at least 1 million seabirds and 100,000 marine mammals are killed every year by ingesting plastic or getting caught in it. It is an environmental nightmare and it is getting worse every year. But this week, more than 200 countries signed an agreement to begin dealing with the problem. VOA's Kevin Enoch reports.
Plastic has been around for nearly a century. These days, it's everywhere, especially in the world's waterways. An estimated 8 million metric tons of plastic end up in our oceans every year.
We need to act to really address plastic going into our ocean so we can turn the tide on this huge avalanche of plastic going to our ocean. So the biggest burden is us, which is why we need to act on this.
This week in Kenya, 200 nations signed a resolution to try and do that.
So part of the resolution will see regions and countries starting to monitor and audit the amount of plastic that they're putting into the ocean. And we're also going to see probably another commitment that will reaffirm the fact by 2025 they will cut the amount of plastic going into the ocean.
An estimated 100,000 marine mammals and 1 million seabirds are killed every year by floating or ingested plastic. And Barrett says we are also being affected because plastic isn't just in the water. Increasingly, it's in our food.
Whether it's shellfish, whether it's salt, whether it's water, we're seeing plastic everywhere now. And so people are being affected deeply by this issue, which is why it's no longer just an environmental issue, it's becoming a health issue.
Corporate giants like Nestle and the food company Danone are joining the fight, saying they will switch to completely biodegradable packaging by 2020. The resolution to reduce plastic waste was brought forward by Norway, which relies on ocean resources for 70% of its gross domestic product. Kevin Enix, VOA News.
Asia Vision, Asian news through Asian eyes.
North Dakota's vast flatlands have long been known for fertile fields of canola seeds, grazing cattle and oil drilling. But in recent years, those wide open spaces have also become U.S. ground for commercial drone research and testing. VOA's Ling Yang and Beibe Su report.
Put an unmanned aerial vehicle into flight in North Dakota, gaze across the unhindered horizon, and watch what can go wrong.
4 solid seasons. I mean, not uncommon for our summers to be 90+ degrees, and our winters to get below 0 temperatures. Light wind days, strong wind days. I mean, from a testing environment, we have that's unique.
That's why North Dakota has spent more than $38 million to foster the drone testing business, including at the Civilian Industrial Park near Grand Forks Air Force Base, where testers can watch your drone's every move, good or bad.
And that's where North Dakota becomes really valuable, because the safety factor is how many planes are in the air that you might run into, how many people are on the ground. If you crash, would you hurt? And there's not many here in North Dakota.
Established in 2015, Grand Sky is the first U.S. commercial testing ground for unmanned aerial systems, or UAS. North Dakota invested $17 million of public money into the privately owned Grand Sky. The 217-acre park is where commercial drone companies, big or small, conducting testing and training.
There's a lot of different applications out there for use of UAS. A lot of, from North Dakota's standpoint, agriculture is a big application. Energy sector is a big application. Energy sector, again, each of those industries can use a UAS for multiple different types of applications. Power line inspections, pipeline inspections, monitoring, vegetation, crop health, you name it.
Nick Flown has the Northern Plains UAS test site, one of the 6 FAA test sites in the nation. He says drones will replace dull and dangerous jobs and will generate new opportunities. State officials hope the drone industry will generate high-paying jobs in piloting, maintenance, and data collection.
Flying although it's called an unmanned aircraft system, there's really nothing unmanned about it. You still have a pilot who flies it. And there's a lot of additional support that comes off of it.
But there are challenges. Federal regulations require that drones must fly within a visual line of sight, presenting a challenge to the growing industry. But in the last few months, President Trump announced an initiative to expand the regulations, aimed at balancing the benefits of new technology with lowering the risks to public safety. Lin Yang and Beibe Su, VOA News, Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Scientists around the world are increasingly using satellite technology to study life on Earth. Small, inexpensive transponders attached to animals track their movement and interaction with humans, helping scientists and activists protect endangered species. Oceania, which is an international organization dedicated to the protection and restoration of the world's oceans, teamed with shark researchers to study the fishing industry's impact on one shark species. VOA's George Puchik reports.
Every day, thousands of commercial fishing vessels crisscross the world's oceans looking for fish. The movements of more than 60,000 of those ships are tracked on a publicly available internet-based map called Global Fishing Watch. Set up by Oceana with SkyTruth and Google, it uses data from several private satellite companies.
It can be used to monitor marine protected areas to make sure that vessels are not fishing where they're not supposed to be. It can be used by governments that lack the resources or the capacity to adequately monitor their waters, to actually monitor their waters in a more cost-effective way.
Along with the targeted species, fishermen's nets and hooks snag bycatch, unwanted fish and other sea creatures, including sharks, perhaps as many as 273 million a year. Most of those are blue sharks, and because of their low commercial value, their bodies are usually discarded with no record of ever being caught. Bycatch is one of the greatest threats facing shark populations today. In June 2016, shark researchers from University of Miami and the organization Beneath the Waves tagged 10 blue sharks off the U.S. East Coast. Oceana and its partners integrated collected data with Global Fishing Watch, providing for the first time the map of interaction between sharks and fishing vessels.
So that's why these technologies, we could help estimate the actual amount of bycatch by understanding when these sharks are in jeopardy of being caught by fishing vessels when they're in close proximity. We could use that to estimate the actual levels of bycatch and help understand the risks to these species.
Oceana hopes that integrating data from tagged animals, not only sharks, but whales, turtles, and other endangered species, will help authorities design conservation measures, such as restricted fishing or hotspot closures. The interactive fishing map can be found at globalfishingwatch.org. George Putic, VOA News, Washington.
And that's it for AVN News for now. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Asia Vision, Asian news through Asian